All right, welcome to today's webinar, introducing the new Flatfile Data Exchange Platform. I'm Gottfried Seringer, CMO at Flatfile. I'll be your host for the webinar today. I'm very excited to have Flatfile's founding team with us today, our CEO, David Boskovic, and his co-founder, Eric Crane. Both have probably talked to more people about the topic of data import than anybody around, and they have many years of experience in this space, both as developers and practitioners on the ground, and since starting Flatfile as product strategists and pioneers of that data import category. And today, they'll be talking about how Flatfile has taken this experience and is again transforming how developers can build data import solutions. We'll start off by briefly setting the stage about Flatfile and how we are addressing this unmet need in the data integration stack in a new and very different way. Then we'll spend the majority of the time in a live demo. I know that's what you all here for, showcasing how this new platform can address some more and more complex use cases. We'll also take a look at what else we've made available to developers so that they can get started immediately and they'll feel very much at home with our platform. And of course, at the end, we'll leave some time for questions. You can add questions at any time during the webinar using the Q&A button on your webinar screen, and we'll address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. One of the most frequently asked questions I can already answer ahead of time. Yes, we'll make a recording of the webinar available. You'll get an email from us within the next 24 hours or so with a link to the recording. Now, without further ado, Eric, it's your turn. Take it away.
Thanks, Gottfried. So as Gottfried mentioned, for the last 4 years, we've been laser focused on a systemic problem that we call data exchange. During that time, we've worked with our customers, many of whom are represented on the call today, to better understand what more we were missing at Flatfile. Data exchange is an important but messy problem. Before Flatfile, there was a major gap in the data integration stack. And that gap was filled often by services, customer-facing templates, and custom builds, what I like to call sweat-based solutions. Those solutions are fraught with hidden costs, scaling issues, and most importantly, distractions from your core business. We aim to fill this gap for you with a solution that is customizable, scalable, and secure. In addition, our solution needs to fit as well or better than any of the status quo alternatives. By collaborating with customers and learning, sometimes the hard way, we're proud to introduce the reinvention of Flatfile as an open platform. I'll hand it to David to tell the story behind the platform and show us how it works.
Thanks, Eric. This is really one of the most exciting days we've had at Flatfile. And that's because what we're going to show you today is really, as Eric was just mentioning, in direct response to the feedback our customers and future customers have been giving us on the product since we started this company. And that feedback could be really summed up as one thing. Data exchange is a world of edge cases, and not just wish list edge cases, right? Absolutely non-optional blocker edge cases. I'm sure in this room, there's a bunch of people nodding as you're thinking through all the types of files that your customers send you. And we've seen everything from PDF to .back to SQL dumps, but there's going to be this one thing that your customers always send or your vendors always send that you just have to support in order for your business to function. For each type of different integration that is required for the onboarding or a data exchange flow, from webhooks to FTP servers to automated pipelines, each of these things at some point becomes an absolutely critical part of your flow. For each type of data cleanup action, some of our customers have years and a whole body of work of macros and utilities designed to help clean up data for their customers. And the big question is, can I bring that to Flatfile? Can my embedded product experience or my direct customer experience include those pieces of functionality? And it's not just data functionality. For enterprises, oftentimes it's about access restrictions, multi-phase audit workflows, and the list goes on and on. But in order to deliver a data exchange or data onboarding experience for your vendors or customers, you've got to be able to solve these things. And if you don't, then then you have to solve this somehow with services. This list of edge cases can go on. I've touched on a few, but really the universal thing that each of our customers value Flatfile for is the data experience. It's something you can proudly put in front of your customers. It reflects incredibly well on your brand with the beautiful design and simple experiences built in. And each interaction around data is designed impeccably for non-technical users. And if you ever thought an ETL product could be a beautiful user experience and then tried to make that happen, well, you've entered the design challenge of Flatfile. The spreadsheet-like interface we've built is comfortable and familiar for end users preparing their data. But is a spreadsheet type experience enough when you have a complex multi-month enterprise onboarding or a multi-sheet, multi-file type data exchange scenario? Unequivocally, the answer is now yes. Because with the data exchange platform, we've brought superpowers to this core data experience. The shackles are off of your developers. Every aspect of Flatfile is extendable. Every type of file that you might want to load, you can write either custom file extractors for or use from our growing list of community extractors. You can also bring over every custom macro and script you've ever written and package it in simple buttons and utilities for your end users when useful. And you can integrate Flatfile now into any type of business workflow without having to change your business process, instead making Flatfile conform to a process that's already well established. And this is a process that can exist over time as well, with access layers, etc. So how have we done this? Over the last year, we've been working on rebuilding Flatfile as a developer-first product. Over the last 6 months, it's been in early access with a handful of incredible partners, some who are on this call today. What we've done is we've taken the low-code world of Flatfile you're familiar with, and we've given all of the capabilities to you in two key building blocks. A powerful, well-documented API, you can find the documentation on our website, and an extreme low latency PubSub event stream. And I'm talking single-digit millisecond latency here. So you can react to every interaction in the UI, every click, every data, data input the users provide, every file upload, etc. We've built a lightweight TypeScript SDK to allow you to react to that in pure JavaScript, but you can also implement the event handlers in pretty much any framework you want. So in our demo today, I'm going to show you exactly how powerful this can be. But to start, I actually just want to show you how simple it is. So we're going to actually start with the simplest way of implementing Flatfile, which is about 3 lines of code. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second to start that. And we'll dive right into the demo. Here we go. All right, we're going to head and import data. Now, this brings up the traditional experience that you're familiar with Flatfile, that simple drag and drop spreadsheet experience. This has been improved, though, drastically with over 50 new data capabilities. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by dragging and dropping a file. Now, I have some sample data here. I'm just going to drop a CSV file. Let's keep this simple for the moment. Go ahead and upload this. File's extracted. And Flatfile's familiar mapping experience present. Now, for those who are not familiar with Flatfile, we have billions of user decisions across millions of imports that we've tracked and used to train Flatfile's matching engine. You'll notice that origin is matched country here, employee ID to worker ID. This is a trained system. So generally, when users arrive here, they simply come in and confirm the decisions that are made. However, if there were incorrect decision, they could go ahead and manually make that change or adjustment. Great, simple user experience, data previews available to them. It's not just about the header mapping, though. We also allow users to make decisions about data sets. Now, in a minute, I'll show you the underlying structure defined behind this data. But if in this scenario, we're mapping incoming values to an enumerated option or a list of options. So we can map data values as well. Go ahead and click continue. Obviously, a user will just click through quickly. Now we're into the data. Now, looks like we've got some invalid records here. So let's take a quick look at what our invalid records actually are. Looks like we've got some invalid emails here. And let's scroll around here and see what we got. All right, let's fix these email issues first. It looks like we've got a comma and we shouldn't. So let's go ahead and do a quick find and replace here. Let's replace that with a period and resolve those issues. All right, looks like we're down to 54 errors. It looks like we've got some unique errors here. Let's go ahead and delete 2 of these records that have a unique violation. And let's keep going. All right, 50. Let's see what our 50 errors are. Looks like we're missing some worker IDs here. Now, this is where one of Flatfile's new capabilities becomes really powerful. Now, a user could go and manually enter IDs here, but instead, we have an action available for them. Now, actions are like macros. We'll take a look at the scripts behind this in a second, but we're just going to go ahead and generate IDs for any value that is not available. You can define any type of macro here for the user to use, either your team or your customer. We'll go ahead and resolve that. That'll quickly run, and it looks like we're down to no invalid issues. We'll go ahead and complete the import. All right. Now, this is a quick preview. There's of the embedded experience you can add, use with Flatfile. This can be done as a dialogue, and it can now be done as an inlined iframe. So it's directly in your application. Lots of powerful ways to use Flatfile, but this is what you're familiar with. There's so much more you can do now. We're going to go to the next level. You can now host Flatfile not embedded. If you want to run an enterprise onboarding project with multiple sheets, multiple data sets, complex relational validations, and collaboration, that's all available in the product as well. It's the same fundamental data experience as what you just saw embedded with superpowers. Let's take a look at how that's built. You'll see that everything is built, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, around events and API calls. This is a listener configured for this workspace. This space will configure it. We'll jump into how that works. This is a space setup here. It adds these sheets. We'll take a look at how those sheets work and some actions. You'll see those actions reflected here in the UI. You can make these actions be whatever you like them to be, not just a submit, not just a egress option. It can really be whatever you want. In this case, we set up a review option. This review option will send the data to a member on the audit team to do additional analysis before it's finally loaded. This is a configuration that's set up here. Configuring Flatfile is quite simple. We have an easy syntax definition framework called Blueprint, just JSON here. But you can also bring over any schema definitions you want and convert them to Blueprint using handy utilities like JSON schema or other DDLs. In this case, we'll just take a quick look at some of the definitions here. You'll see the options we saw earlier in the embedded demo and other constraints required, etc. All right, let's take a look at how this actually works. So you just saw me go through the import experience, but you'll note, if you remember, there were a list of companies and locations in that sheet, but they were not linked or validated to anything. Let's go ahead and do that same upload, this time with a more complex data model. Let's drop in those employees here. All right, loaded and mapping. All right, let's map these in, first name and middle name. So remembering me skipping this from the previous time, and obviously the mapping experience. Let's get this into the data now. All right, now there's 1,000 invalid records here, but why? Previously, there were only 200. Let's scroll over. It looks like our companies don't actually exist. Now, this is quite interesting, but I've got some company data. Let's go ahead and upload that. Now, this is going to be an Excel file this time. The usual suspects of great tabular data. Let's drop this in. Now we're bringing over some company information. Let's go take a look at this. Loaded. So we've got some validation issues here. But interestingly, my incoming data did not have currency. So where did this currency come from? Well, let's introduce you now to a new type of sheet inside of Flatfile. Countries here is a connected sheet. This sheet is actually connected to a live API. This is really important because countries change every day, of course, right? Real-time country data is critical. But in this country, we've got a country code, country name, but we've got metadata around the country. Yeah, most importantly, the FIFA team, as well as some additional information. One of those pieces of information is the currency for that country. That's being materialized into this sheet. Based off of the country here, we're looking at the currency and pulling that in. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happens if we were to switch this. Let's see, I wonder what the currency is for this country. There we go, automatically adjusted to euros. You can build materializations across multiple relational sheets and validations. We're not out of the woods yet here. Let's jump back over here to employees. All right, looks like we've immediately validated these relationships. We've got one that's missing, obviously a real value, which we can resolve later. We still have our location data. Let's go drop that in. And this time, let's go take a look at something really interesting. We're going to go ahead and upload an XML file. You're starting to get a picture that Flatfile can really handle any type of file. We're on file type 3 here. And the answer is yes. Literally any file that can be extracted into a data structure can be supported in Flatfile. Let's take a look at how that actually works in code here. So jumping over here, let's switch code over here. All right. You'll see that we've got an XML extractor, an Excel extractor, and Flatfile's native CSV extractor. As a developer, you can use any of the open source extractors available or write your own. Writing your own is as simple as figuring out how to get data from a file into a JSON structure and loading it to Flatfile. So it really opens up the door in using plenty of open source packages or built-in plugins inside of Flatfile. Let's go ahead and start with XML. If I can move my Zoom thing here. All right, there we go. Let's drag and drop this over. Boom. All right. Perfect. And as you can see, even though it's an XML file, we're still getting the same mapping experience using the keys, etc. Flatfile's pretty smart at addressing the things like attributes, etc. in XML as well. For the sake of this demo, we'll keep it simple. All right. Now that that's loaded, looks like we've got our location data in here. If we go back to employees, now we're down to 230 invalid. We remember how to solve that from before, but let's show a few more things. We are investing deeply in the data experience. You can expect to see a lot more features like this come, but now included in this are all the usual suspects: sort, validate, filter, replacing values, finding and searching in fields, etc. Let's go ahead and filter by errors just on email, though. Get some further analysis. All right, great. Now our action here, we've got a few more actions here. Interesting. We'll come back to those later. Let's go ahead and do a find and replace. All right, got our comma. You guys remember this from a few minutes ago. We'll just clean this up, though. All right, great. Got 55 invalid errors here. We'll leave these invalid for the moment, and we'll talk through another way of resolving things. All right, now I had to switch my authentication to an admin mode. I wouldn't normally be seeing this review here. This would be what Eric would be seeing when I submit this data. So we're going to go ahead and prepare to submit our data. Before that, let's take a look at how some of these macros were built. Generate IDs is a simple function that when I select these records and I go ahead and generate IDs, you'll see it populated with the values defined. There we go. The values defined by this function. You can write anything you want in JavaScript, right? Both as automatic transformations when users make changes. Like, let's take a look at this. Let's go ahead and do something fun here. Let's say these values don't exist. You'll notice that it materializes these values from the full name. This is another type of automatic action happening immediately upon user edit that's splitting the values and highlighting to the user that something was automatically generated. All right. As we've gone through this, we've shown some of the data capabilities of interacting with data. But what about finding records? There's now full text search across the entire data set. And this doesn't matter whether you have 1 million records or 1,000 in this scenario. But let's find all the people named Aaron real quick. Almost instantaneous search across every field looking at this. But maybe we don't want, maybe we just want to search for worker IDs. That's also okay. Let's go ahead and search just in this field. And we only want to search for employee IDs with 300 in them. Great. Pretty simple here, but it doesn't stop there. I'm going to go ahead and request review from Eric, who will show us some additional capabilities. All right. I see a review workbook, which would not have been accessible to the end user. I'll hand this over to Eric to continue the next step.
Yep, thanks, David. So as you can see, I can actually do a couple of different things as an admin, but first of all, I can get full access to this entire space. So in the demo that David was walking through, you're sort of acting from the perspective of an end customer, but you can include additional access controls on top of a space that allows access to only certain data sets for certain parties. So if you'll see in here, you'll see there's a way for you to manage guests as well as the different types of workbooks that they have access to, which allows them to sort of interact with data in particular ways. So in this case, this was the actual workbook that David submitted to me. So I'm now acting as an administrator who's going to review this data. And the thing that I want to do first and foremost is ensure that none of these are fraudulent records. So we've got a database table called a watch list that has a list of all of the different potential fraudulent values that could potentially be imported into the system. So what I'm going to do here is actually run this action that's built as a macro, similar to what David was showing with generate IDs. And when this runs, what it's going to do is it's going to check all of the different records in this table and then determine which of those are actually present in our watch list. So if I wanted to sort this, I could see all the ones that are present in our watch list where I need to pay attention to. I could also choose, for example, to take a few of these and return these back to David's data set as well with a flag that says, hey, David, I need you to review these before this data actually gets submitted. What's nice here is that for any action that you're taking in Flatfile, we will respect whatever sort of record filter or selection set that you have in order to take that action. So as David was navigating through things like the different filters, there's an ability for you to, let's just say, take an action just on a certain data set. So if I wanted to go here and just say, hey, you know what, I only want to find, let's go ahead and go to United States like this. I've now sort of essentially created a subset or view of the data here and then can interact with just the values from United States. Now, there's a lot of different interactions you can do in this table. As you just saw, you saw me pinning the values, you saw me scrolling around. There's also standard table interactions you can see, like copy paste, etc. So really excited to share this with you and to learn more about how you might use it. But for the purposes of time, we'll go ahead and exit the demo here. We did show a demo of both a really simple import flow, so something like a single data set being uploaded into a system with some basic validations, as well as a more detailed collaborative project with things like custom actions and workflow steps and access controls. We also saw how a user would go through that workflow to load, map, and normalize data as they're interacting with it, and collaboration between multiple parties. That really only scratches the surface of all the different capabilities. There's so much more you can do with the platform. Even just in our early access period, we saw an example of a customer doing full orchestration, where they use Flatfile to collect a nightly CSV file feed coming from an SFTP source for doing claims reconciliation. We have another customer who has a highly configurable e-commerce platform. So their end users design their data schema. And so their SKU templates are highly dynamic, and Flatfile can sort of generate the appropriate schema or the appropriate template in a workbook in real time as their users are loading data in. And of course, plenty of our customers simply want that to modernize a simple self-service data importer that's embedded in their application. So if you're a current customer, you're welcome to reach out to your CSM or our support team to schedule a time to learn more about the new platform, as I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, they'll be reaching out to you at some point in the near-term future. And if you're not a customer yet, check your inbox for an exclusive consultation link with our team to walk you through the details of the new platform and assess how your use case could best be built in the context of the data exchange platform. Because they'll be able to help you access dozens of different new features and improved capabilities that are now available. A few things I'll highlight here are the ability to do full style customization with custom landing pages. You can have dynamic and user-defined templates, as I was mentioning that other customer used earlier. There's an ability to do real-time validation via external APIs, referencing back to that real-time PubSub listener that David was mentioning. And also inline embedding within a web app. You don't need to load flat files as a modal. You could actually have it be sort of like as a place on a page, or in fact be an entire page inside of your app for a persistent space for you and your customer to collaborate on data. Along with that robust set of features, we also have a full developer toolkit to support the platform. From an open API reference guide to docs with examples to get started quickly, to chat and community support for everyone, there's really no reason not to get started. It's totally free and there's no credit card required. And if you know you're going to need a little bit more, we have a transparent and simple pricing model that only charges for production usage and grows with your needs. You can start with a free plan that has a monthly usage limit and just pay as you go after that limit. Or you can choose our professional or enterprise plan for volume discounts and additional features. So if you're looking to improve your data exchange experience, improve the quality of inbound data to your system, and leverage our toolkit to solve this problem in your business, get started here. I really look forward to building with you. Now I'll hand it to Gottfried to moderate our Q&A.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you, David, for this great overview. But as expected, you could only scratch the surface. And I already see lots of questions here coming in. So please continue, keep them coming. We'll try to go through as many as we can. We'll probably fold a few together that are sort of very similar here. If you do have a specific questions that are to your business or to your particular use case, please make use of the offer that Eric just mentioned. It's in your inbox for scheduling sort of a priority meeting in the next few days with our team. Or if you're already an existing Flatfile customer, you know your customer success manager, you know how to reach out to support, please do so. But now let's take a look at some of the questions. And one is sort of a little bit of a tag on to the questions we had about Excel tabs and so forth before. If the data is not inherently flat, meaning if you have relationships between data sets, how do we handle that? David, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, we previewed a bit of that today, but within Flatfile, you can now build relationships between sheets in your destination system. You can also extract data from multiple tabs and multiple files into the same sheet over time. So allowing users to bring data, regardless of whether it's in a relational structure or in a flat structure, load it into Flatfile and validate all of those relationships there. You can view a lot of the configuration options available when you go to our developer docs and you go to the blueprint tab and learn about the way you can configure Flatfile there. But in brief, there's almost no relational data structure that cannot be supported in Flatfile. There's an upcoming roadmap as well, allowing for better and faster user interactions around nested and related records that we're excited to share in the coming future.
Awesome. Actually, there were a few questions sort of related to your demo before, David, when you were in the Spaces screen about all the many different things you can do in that screen. It might be easiest if you would just reshare that screen and maybe give people a little bit of a tour of all the different actions and options you have on that screen without redoing the demo, just pointing to some of those. I think that would answer probably 3 or 4 of the questions we've come in here.
Absolutely. Shall we? Do you just want me to go through sort of one by one, or do you want to talk through some of the different questions as it's up here?
I think it was some of those. What can I do? What kind of actions do I have available? Like how do those actions come about? What else can I do on the screen? There was sort of some multi-select going on, etc. So it might just be good to get sort of just a quick sort of left to right summary of what's available to you as you look at the screen.
Yeah. So space is, think of a space as a blank slate for building workflow. In this workflow, there's workbooks. These workbooks are appearing here in the sidebar, and workbooks have sheets and tabs as you might expect from Excel. Within the workbook, the primary type of data interactions that users will go through is trying to discover errors, resolve those errors, and narrow down different sets of data to remove them or edit them. So working with narrowing is really valuable. We have a couple key filters here, like jumping to the invalid records, because sometimes a user may want to simply go to the invalid records and then select them. Now, this select box is something that we're really proud of. You could select 1 million records here and it would still work. Our select logic is designed around the filter as well as the specifics the users created. And it's not limited to just what's viewable on your screen. So a natural interaction, even if the screen is incredibly long. All right. Obviously, each individual record can also be selected. Once you've selected records, you can perform operations on them, whether that be delete, download as built-in actions, or any of the actions that are defined by your developers and built in. Just a reminder of how that works. Let's jump over here. We've got our, let's jump over to our employee sheet here. We've got some of these actions defined here, right? Actions can be whatever my actions are. There we go. Actions are defined in JSON quite easily. They simply need a key and then a handler, which we showed a preview of earlier with generate IDs. There's primary actions, which are defined on the workbook. These are the things that the entire workbook will be operated on. There's a jobs indicator showing each of the completed jobs and how long it took in case there's failure, and giving the user a place to go to after that. There's the ability to filter by specific errors in the sheet, as well as query. And as my faded demo from earlier worked, you should be able to query across multiple fields and conditions at a time. But open search is another great way for people to quickly narrow down their data set. Like Eric showed earlier, typing United States here will get me pretty close to what I'm looking for. All right. Additionally, you can manage guests, people you want to invite to this, and the access that they get in the workspace, which workbooks that they're allowed access to, etc. This can be automated by API or it can be done via the UI. This is really valuable when you have multiple stakeholders, whether that be vendors, customers, implementation partners, and internal folks needed to go through an onboarding flow. This is for the developers in the room, with the ability to set secrets that are encrypted carefully and then available inside of your listener for interacting with your API or customer accounts. So yeah, it's a bit of a tour. If you're an admin, you can switch between different spaces available to you. And there's the checklist that customers can go through and sort of view additional context for each of the sheets and records. All right, how's that?
Awesome. Thank you, David. And here's a question for Eric about, okay, now we got the data in here. How do I transfer data out to the destination? For example, can I export to Snowflake? Chris is asking that.
Yes, absolutely. And great question. So Flatfile is built to be agnostic of the types of files that you're receiving, right? It's just like, hey, we're looking for flat files to extract, normalize, and then get ready to go. And we're also agnostic to where the data is going too. So as David was showing on that screen a little bit earlier, you can attach any sort of like API-based push from Flatfile to an action that is on the actual workbook itself. So the most common thing we see is someone having a button on the workbook that says submit, that takes the data from that workbook and sends it to some sort of endpoint, whether that's a webhook notification that then queries our API, or whether you actually stream the data to that particular endpoint. Either potential way works, but I've also seen folks do other types of flows as well, where they'll actually take the data in Flatfile, turn it into a CSV file or turn it into an Excel file, and then load that file into some sort of data store. So we're sort of completely agnostic to how you actually want to accomplish that. However, if you're interested in learning a bit more about egress from Flatfile, there is a section on our docs that covers egress and some of the ways we see our customers setting up egress methods from the system.
Awesome. There's actually a tag-on question from, I don't see the first name, S something, so call him Sam. Can you do an automated push of a file, for example, as FTP? I presume that's the ingress side of things.
Yeah, I mean, either way works, right? So with pulling data from SFTP, David talked about earlier the well-documented API that we have. So there's an endpoint for pushing files into Flatfile. All you have to do is tell us, hey, where does the flat file need, or where does the file need to land inside of the system, which space should it get uploaded to? And then you can run that entirely via API. Similarly, you can also extend Flatfile with extensions that allow you to, extensions that we call plugins, which would allow you to sort of like integrate an SFTP client inside of the context of the space as well. So there's a bunch of open source libraries that allow you to do that similarly. But if you want to dig deeper on this topic, you're more than welcome to reach out to me or anyone on the team. We'd be happy to discuss it further with you.
Excellent.
Yeah. And to tee on to the FTP point, oftentimes FTP is coupled with automation, where maybe initially you want to go through a data preparation flow manually, and then have the system remember those rules and those corrections you've applied. With plugins like our Automat plugin, you can automatically sync files that appear on an hourly or weekly basis using the same rules that were previously applied. And if for some reason something comes up that causes an error, you can always go back and correct it or have your user correct those issues in the flow that we've just demoed.
Thank you. That's actually a great lead in also to the next question. The whole notion of combining use cases or having sort of different uses in the same work stream here. It's also from a UI and from an API perspective. So Josh is asking here, how can we leverage both the customizable API platform and the Flatfile UI experience together? Are they mutually exclusive? I think we kind of answered that during the demo, but it's good to reiterate that, David.
They are not. So everything you see in Flatfile from the UI perspective is customizable and controlled by API. So the same space configuration, the same space concept that we showed in the advanced flow is also used for the embedded flow. You can choose whether you show the sidebar, whether you allow multiple files, documents, etc. And there's a lot that we didn't touch on there, but all of that's controlled by our developer configuration via the API. But they are not mutually exclusive. They work hand in hand. And you can give as many powers to your embedded users or your collaborative users as you like.
Excellent. There's one question. Maybe I'll take that for a quick change. There are actually several questions I see here around pricing and the cost of using Flatfile. I don't want to sort of spend a lot of time on that. Eric already shared sort of the overview there. Please check out our website, flatfile.com/pricing. There's everything in detail on that. But just to, I guess, drive that point home, there is a free version. You can, as a developer, use Flatfile completely free during the development period. When you go into production, we give you a free allowance per month where you can use Flatfile up to a certain amount of data you push through. And after that, you have the choice. You can just go on a very simple pay-as-you-go option. Starts as $2 per file. So it's $2, $4, $6, $8, super cheap and super easy to continue there. Or you can sign up for one of our professional enterprise plans that give you some discounts and additional benefits as part of the plan. So all kinds of options. Everything's out there on the website, sort of in that vein of you want to make it easy for developers. It's right there, very transparent. Going back to another question here. How about zip files? Eric, do you want to talk? What if I have a zip file with multiple CSVs in there? How do I handle those?
Yeah, I'm loving these questions because they're alluding a lot to the extensibility of the platform. Yes, we can build something into the core product. It might take a little while for us to get around to creating an extension that allows you to handle zip files. But because the platform is open, you can actually build your own extension for zip files too, that allows you to take those and extract those into individual files, unzip them, and then load them into the system. So the nice thing is we do have a lot of file extraction plugins that are available for reference already that Flatfile hosts and maintains. But again, similar type of question to what we saw before with the PDF file. If you're interested in working on this with us and have an urgent need to get something like that out the door, let us know. We'd be happy to co-develop this with you in order to ensure that it does all the exact things that it needs to. But absolutely, we could handle sort of like extracting from a zip file. And our ultimate goal here is to take whatever is in that file and turn it into sort of like a discrete parsed set of workbooks in JSON that allow us to interact with the data in the system, as you saw during the demo.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. And now I see the audience actually already answering their own questions. William, I hope you don't mind if I call you out here. So there's a William asked a question about the worker ID issue that David was demoing before. Is there a way to do something like generating a user ID from a hash of a given row? And then after hearing everything we're saying here, oh yes, I'm seeing you could do this with a slightly different version of the JS code. Thank you. So David, I think you're no longer needed here. The audience is answering.
There we
go. All right, but no shortage of good questions here. Let me pick out another one here that might be relevant for the wider audience, and that is actually, do you support self-hosting? Eric, do you want to take that from Matthew here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have quite a few Flatfile customers, as well as those that are already on this new data exchange platform that are hosting within their own architecture. So whether you have sort of like a completely isolated environment or a public-private hybrid, either way, the Flatfile application is easy enough to containerize, ship within your architecture, and configure to work within your infra.
Great, thank you. And I'm just sort of reading here.
Great. I'd love to grab one from the audience here. It's an anonymous. Anonymous says, I am a citizen developer. Is this something that I can implement without much technical knowledge? Well, we've built this for developers. So you do need to be a developer. You need to have some JavaScript skills. However, there's some really cool stuff we've done. Let me give you a quick preview of how you can use our documentation to do most of the implementation for you. Go ahead here, go to flatfile.com/docs. And we have ChatGPT integrated into our docs. So show me how I could capitalize all the first name fields in a contacts sheet. You'll see that our docs knows how Flatfile works and can generate code and code examples for how to implement Flatfile. And will automatically generate some code you can copy and paste, use, tweak, and play with. Go ham with this. It knows everything about Flatfile. It can fantasize at with some questions, as AI is prone to do, but it'll get you most of the way. It'll give you the sources and references for how you can accomplish things. For beginner developers, this is an exceptionally good way of making sure that you are on the right track with different capabilities.
Awesome. Actually, speaking of the documentation here, we also run a weekly developer office hour webinar. You can just drop in as time allows, and we have our fabulous developer relations team there answering all kinds of questions, showing some tips and tricks along the way. So feel free to register that. You'll find that on the doc side and our website to register. There are some more questions. There's one question from Jeff. How much variability is there from source files to target? For example, if you have thousands of customers uploading Excel files with different nuances, but all going to the same target schema, is that a realistic use case?
Oh, what an excellent. I don't know who asked this question, but what a great setup. So there's
I promise it was not a setup question.
I know, right? There's a slide in every one of our pitch decks for investors the last few years that talks about the fact that Flatfile exists in a high variance input to low variance output world. In fact, in a low variance input world, you probably don't need or benefit meaningfully from Flatfile. Usually in that scenario, a hard-coded rule set will work better and more consistently for your user. Flatfile operates in a high variance input world where each user is bringing something completely different, requiring you to allow them to solve the challenges with their data at the point of variance in order to scale. This is where Flatfile's entire data experience gets built. By allowing the user to do the mapping, the correction, and manipulation of the data, you can keep your services team or your internal teams out of the flow until absolutely necessary. But as you saw in the demo earlier today, if the user runs into issues, you can easily get involved from the dashboard, collaborating with them, resolving issues, and making sure that data completion gets all the way through. So we allow you to elegantly fall back to services as necessary, but in an ideal world with this well configured, and the vast majority of variant data can be resolved by the user in flow as they're providing data.
Excellent. Thank you. We have, I think, only time for a couple more questions. You have a good one?
So I have a good one here. Someone was just asking about clarifications on reference IDs and how to handle referential data inside of Flatfile. So behind the scenes, we do create referential links with data that's defined as having like a relationship in the system. So if we hop back into our example from earlier, let's go ahead and go to our employee registry. You'll note that there are links between employees, locations, and companies, all of which are separate data sets here. So not only can we validate whether or not a reference value exists in the other table and describe that to the user, but we can also use these values in validation logic and transformation functions as well. So for example, in the context of a country, you may have other information like what is the currency code that could affect output and other values for that related record. So there's a lot that you can do with relationships in Flatfile now, where if you were a previous customer, you weren't able to necessarily do so, that we're really excited to share with you.
Excellent.
There's
Thank you.
a question here that deserves to be touched on as well. Godfrey, I'm swiping questions.
Thank you. That's I noticed some disappeared from my screen. That
this is exceptional. I love how many questions came in here. This is exactly what we need. And please, if you didn't get your question answered today, please feel free to chat in on our website, reach out, or join our developer community, and we'll be able to engage engage in any of those. We'll also be sending out links for people to be able to chat with our team directly. But you mentioned that you will make PDF uploads available in the future. What if our clients have multiple types of PDF layouts that will be extracted to the, will that be extracted? Now, PDF is a huge challenge because PDF is obviously unstructured data. And Flatfile is not going to be the expert in the world of extracting data from unstructured files. Many companies have built incredible OCR platforms, et cetera. The way you would integrate that into Flatfile is by integrating those platforms in directly into the process. We'll be sharing an example plugin that uses an available API for automatically converting tables from within PDFs into CSVs. But if you have more complex PDFs like pay stubs, et cetera, using one of the OCR platforms available, getting the data extraction from it in line with Flatfile as the user drops the file is possible. So really, you can use Flatfile in combination with any of the capabilities available in the market today, and the user will just simply see their data dropped and extracted in an incredibly elegant flow.
Awesome. Thank you very much. With that, we are at the top of the hour. Any unanswered questions? We'll try to catch up with you from a sales or from a CS side, or again, if we don't catch you quickly enough, please reach out to us. You can email us at hello@flatfile.com. And thank you for attending. And we look forward to seeing you around. And certainly we look forward to seeing your signups for the platform. Give it a shot. It's out there for you to try. Thank you. Bye-bye.